By the way, oh crap.
Oh, we're
Uh,
recording,
It's a test. It
Vasquez.
doesn't matter. It's a test. It doesn't matter.
okay, so
Vasquez tried to call
BMNF is that
timeout
Bobby
right as
Manning
we
and friends?
Bobby Manning and friends. We're live.
Okay,
I'm
Nate
not co-signing
Spurlin's
that name.
here. Come on, Nate. Sit up, man. Lock in. We got a big show here. Vasquez, Nate Spurlin, aka Old Milk. This is a group chat edition. Bobby Manning and friends. Nate doesn't like the name, so I suggested Bobby Manning, Nate Spurlin, and friends. How's that,
That's better.
Vasquez?
That's so much better.
only if we can do Bobby Manning and Nate Spurling and Ant Vasquez and friends. We
Well,
might as
that
well
was
just
what I
keep
was
adding
worried
names into the
about. We're gonna have
title.
like 7 names.
But here's the thing, though. Me and Vasquez are here. We're in on the ground floor. We
You
get
showed up.
naming rights.
You
hmm
showed up.
It's like
We got a lot
investing in
of
Bitcoin back in the
and
2000s.
I was here yesterday. I don't know.
But
You were here
did you
yesterday.
guys record yesterday?
It wasn't my
No.
fault that we didn't record.
Nate fell asleep.
No, that's
That
not
is so
true.
real. I
No,
had the
here's
same
what happened.
situation.
I joined at 10:30 like we agreed, and I said from 10:30 to 11. I stayed till 11:15. So I
But
don't
when
want to
did the
hear none of
game
that.
end?
11:15.
Yeah, that game went crazy long.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah,
one of the best games I've ever seen. Easily the best comeback I've ever seen. And they put the Knicks in a bad place, Vasquez. This is the kind of game that can lose you a series right off the bat.
oh, absolutely. I mean, it definitely feels like a polar opposite of what the Knicks were dealing with in the round prior when they were playing against the Celtics. It seemed like the first two games were going the Celtics' way, and then, through grit and determination, the Knicks were able to capitalize. Hopefully that's not a bad omen of things to come. But Tyrese Haliburton, Aaron Nesmith, what a performance. One of the best of the season.
Aaron Nesmith. I
Celtics legend.
can't smile any brighter than I have over this guy's performance last night, Nate. This guy, he couldn't get any run in Boston. They said he was a paperclip when they traded him to the Pacers for Malcolm Brogdon, and Bleacher Report did. He took it personally, and now look at him. He just hit 8 threes. How many did he have down the stretch? 5 or 6?
5.
5 in the final 3 minutes to tie this game. It's one of, I said it was the greatest comeback I've ever seen. His performance specifically is the greatest shooting performance I've seen down the stretch of a game. One of the greatest closing performances I've seen down the stretch of a game. Everything he put up went in.
Yeah, I mean, credit to the Pacers. They didn't quit, even though it looked like they should probably get ready for game 2. But I see everybody talking about the Pacers, rightfully so. They put in a good effort. Like I said, they didn't quit, even though it seemed like they should have quit, and they got rewarded for that. But at the end of the day, the story of this game is the Knicks and their mistakes down the stretch. You missed 12 free throws and you're up 14. There's no excuse for you to lose that game. I don't understand why you have Karl Anthony Towns taking free throws at the end of the game. You can't trust him. I don't understand why you have OG Anunoby taking free throws at the end of the game. You can't trust him either. The only person that you could trust to knock down those free throws is Jalen Brunson. And for one reason or another, they just didn't get him the ball. And I'm under the belief that if Jalen Brunson took all those free throws, we're not talking about the Pacers today.
It's a fair point, and the OG one was extra ugly. The Towns one, I don't have too big of a problem. I mean, he had 33 at that point, after hitting the first one. So just got to pour him in at that point. And that's what bums me out most about this one, Vasquez, is this is going to sound crazy, but I grew to like that Knicks team after that Celtics series. I said, okay, you're going to beat the Celtics, then I'll root for these guys the rest of the way. If they want to go all the way after beating Boston, I'm for that. I'm a Towns guy, Nate. I want to see him figure it out. I want to see him put it all together, but just doesn't happen. Every time he gets into this position, it feels like there's a fall off when they need him most. And then, OG Hart was great in that series. Brunson's a guy that's easy to root for, Vasquez. I could get behind this team. I know you're a Thunder guy. You're going to be back in Oklahoma City the rest of the way, but you're a New Yorker too. You got to love this Knicks team, and man, they just completely collapsed, unlike anything I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a good Knicks team, a competitive Knicks team is great for the league and is great for New York, having been
That's what I'm
starved of
all about. It's good for
of a
basketball.
Absolutely. Having been starved of like a real team and at least let's say a quarter century if you're willing to omit the mellow years. I think as far as the pace is concerned, it's very easy to, push them aside being a small market team and they don't play the flashy style of basketball, but as we saw with them in the Cleveland series, they're playing with house money now. And a lot of the times the hardest team to beat is the one with none to lose. And I think
Yeah,
the Knicks kind of didn't take them seriously that first game. It's really easy to try to get into a scoring matchup with, one of the fastest paced offenses in the league ran by Tyrese Haliburton. Hopefully they're able to recapture that defensive grit and identity that, you know, carried them to the postseason last year and that got them past that first round. It's game two will definitely be a measuring stick for them and a good indicator of what it'll look like in Indiana.
yeah, and they were trying to brush it off today. I don't buy it. You can say all the right
You
things after
you
a loss
can't.
like that, but it's gonna leave a mark, and it's gonna carry over, I feel like. And the Pacers are just relentless, Nate. They started this game hitting all their shots. They closed the game hitting all their shots. They're to me, and I gave them so much respect after that sweep last year, Nate, and you guys kept making fun of me, but that was legitimately the hardest sweep you'll ever see. The way they led in all three of those games, they could have been up 3-1 over the Celtics in that series through game four if they just held on to all those leads. Their offense is unpredictable. They can go to different layers within the same set. Even that last play by Halliburton, and we got to talk about that. The way he attacks the rim and then just backs out on a dime, seeing that Mitchell Robinson was on him, seeing that he didn't have complete room to get off a floater, which is what he wanted to do. So he just backs it out and his foot's on the line and he almost ends up with this all-time mistake by celebrating it as if he won the game. I'm glad they won because that would have been embarrassing. But it was just an example of what he does as a player and how that team operates around him, where they're just tough to predict. And that's what playoff basketball is all about. You can run great things all regular season. You can have great plays, Nate, but teams are going to be on top of all that stuff. So, when people sometimes get on coaches and stuff for not calling timeouts and for, not taking control of their team, the reason coaches don't do that in the NBA is because they want their team to be unpredictable. They want them to be able to operate on the fly because that's what you need to do come playoff time. If you're drawing everything up, if you're being more premeditated, teams are going to sniff that stuff out. And that play to me is the perfect example of how Tyrese Haliburton in particular is one of the most unpredictable players in this league.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Tyrese Haliburton is in a very interesting space where he may be in a Jimmy Butler space, if I'm being honest with you, from the standpoint
It's a good
of
comparison.
the floor isn't always going to be high with him. He's gonna have games where he's inconsistent and he's not shooting the ball well. He'll still probably get you like 8 or 10 assists in those games, but at the end of the day, his shooting percentages aren't always going to be consistent. But then he has this really, really high ceiling, and it seems like that he steps up in big moments whenever his team needs him. It seems to me that he is the closer for that team, which is very interesting to say because like they have a lot of guys who could score. And in hindsight, in our conversations throughout the season, when we were talking about the Celtics have the most depth, the Clippers have the most depth, OKC has the most depth. Indiana should have been in that conversation also. I mean, Cleveland was also in that conversation, and Cleveland was the victim of not having that depth in the second round due to injury. But we had like for the whole season, we thought the teams that were the deepest were the Clippers, Cleveland, Boston, and Oklahoma City. And it turns out that Indiana probably should have been in that category also. And I think that their greatest strength in this series is that they can reliably go 9 deep. And that is definitely something that, especially with their breakneck speed that they play at, puts the Knicks in a vulnerable situation because they really only play 7 guys, and the way that they play is more slow. I thought about this in game one, and I think now in the situation that they're in, it's going to be more important in game two. Jalen Brunson, and whenever Jalen Brunson is off the floor, the Knicks need to control the pace of the game. I think
Yep.
if they control the pace of the game, I think they win. I think if they play their style of basketball that's slow, we're going to score on you, but we're going to score when there's 4 seconds left on the shot clock instead of 19 seconds left on the shot clock. I think that type of pace could potentially put them in a better advantage than trying to play that Indiana you score, I score type of game.
Yeah, and the Pacers are better defensively this year, Vasquez, which I always felt like gave them a better chance. I like the depth, as Nate said. I wish I believed in them more the whole way through because I had them pushing the Cavs to 7. Didn't think they could actually get it done. And then the injuries came into play, as Nate mentioned there. So that changed that series for sure. But it still looks like the way that series played out. I mean, they were up like 40 something, 50 at one point in one of those games against the Cavs with everybody available. Came back, beat the Cavs, who were in control of that game at that time with their guys out. They just won in a lot of different ways in that series. And I'm not ruling out that they could have won without the Cavs being hurt there. So I wish I believed in them more in that series. I wish I believed them more in this series because I gave the benefit of the doubt to the Knicks. And to Nate's point, Vasquez, the depth might prevail in a long series here if the Knicks get worn out. They definitely gave a lot of effort, and even into the game 6 where they're up 40 on the Celtics, they're still playing their starters at that point. I know we talk about that stuff over and over and over again with New York, and it doesn't really seem to affect them. But it did late last postseason, right around this time. And so, yeah, can you stay healthy if you're New York? Can you stay fresh in a series like this? It's every other day now. There's no 2 days off between these games. So that could play the Pacers' advantage. They already stole home court back. They already demoralized the Knicks with that comeback. They've already figured out ways that I think they can attack Brunson. They got him in foul trouble in the fourth quarter early. So all this stuff makes me feel a lot better about the Pacers winning this series. And I wish I said it going in because I do believe in this team, but not enough for me to actually pick them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to definitely say that now, having seen the results of the first game. I mean,
Right. If the Knicks close it
Tyrese
out, we're like,
Haliburton
yeah,
wasn't the Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tyrese Haliburton was voted the most overrated player in amongst
what was
players in
up
the
with that?
NBA, and that seems to be a bad bet now. I mean, I'm willing to assume that most of it has to do with the Olympic run that he had, or rather the lack thereof. I mean,
Mm.
even he admitted it himself when you get an A on a group project and you don't do any work. So it's easy to not put respect on that name. But as you mentioned, the team is exceptionally well built, and they play a style of offense that's really hard for a lot of postseason teams to keep up, especially ones where they play their starters heavy minutes, a la New York. Um, I think New York just needs to, throw this game away, pretend like it never happened. It's easy to let those mental hurdles, overcome you and make you wonder exactly what the Cavs did when Tyrese hit the game winner in game 2 against them in the first round. Are we going to stick to our style of basketball, as you guys had mentioned, or are we going to try to play that game? I think they're gonna be okay. They remind me a lot of the 2014 Pacers. I think it was the 2013, 2014 Pacers when we had Paul George and Roy Hibbert. Just the converse of it, they were a defensive menace who were offensively great in spurts, and this one is an offensive menace that's defensively great in spurts. So hopefully they can close the job. I trust Tyrese a hell of a lot more than Paul George to get that done.
Do they
To
scare
that
you?
point, sorry.
As a
Bobby
Thunder fan,
also
no.
Go ahead, Nate.
brought up the fouls, and Jalen Brunson just had like a terrible, uncharacteristic foul that allowed him to sit down. Ironically enough, that foul and Brunson sitting down led to that huge run where the Pacers just fell apart, which I thought was interesting. But I think again, we can give the Pacers all the credit in the world, and they deserve all the credit in the world. But at the end of the day, the story to me is still that the Knicks just collapsed. They like it was just unforced errors. Why is Karl Anthony Towns in a situation where he has 5 fouls? And this is
How
something
many
that's
times
been
did they
a thing that
almost
he
turn the ball
does.
over too?
Yeah, that too. And it's like I just don't I just like it's impressive that Indiana won the game and they definitely took advantage of the situation that they were put in. I just don't think that the Knicks are I just don't think that the Knicks are going to be in situations, hopefully, because they are also a veteran team. You have Jalen Brunson, who has playoff experience. You have OG Anunoby, who has playoff experience. If I'm not mistaken, he won that ring with Kawhi Leonard. So you have
That he
Mikal
did.
Bridges, who had that finals run with the Suns. So I don't expect the Knicks to put themselves in the same situation where they're playing this sloppy brand of basketball. Jalen Brunson knows he has to be smarter. He knows that he's probably the most important player on his team. And he should not be putting himself in situations where he has to sit down. And I just think that the more and more you guys talk about how good the Pacers were, I just think about, well, the Knicks, Jalen Brunson had 5 fouls. That led to this situation. OG Anunoby didn't pass the ball to Josh Hart when they were trying to burn clock. And that led to OG Anunoby being put on the line to miss one of those 2 free throws. And it just comes down to, for me, it just comes down to unforced errors by the Knicks. And I expect that to be cleaned up. And because I expect that to be cleaned up, I still believe that the Knicks can win this series in 5.
Really?
I'll I'll present the
Yes.
question to you guys. Do you guys feel like this is a situation that coaching can fix for the Knicks? Do you feel like Tibbs can make any adjustments?
Um, Thibs. I mean, I started the show with the first thing I said with this is Brunson should be taking every free throw, every clutch free throw down the stretch. I don't care about the award. I don't know if Vasquez does. Bobby probably does. Jalen Brunson
Clutch player of
is
the
the clutch
year.
player of the year. Put him in situations to be the clutch player that he is, and they didn't do that last night.
Yeah, that's part of it for sure. Again, though, turnovers, slowing down. There were other parts of it. And yeah, it's the same thing we talked about with the Celtics after those games. And it was crazy, Vasquez, how much this mirrored those Celtics collapses from game 1 and game 2 last round. You slow down, you get out of your offense, you take it to late in the clock, you take a lot of threes late in the clock. So you're not necessarily scoring on a great percentage of your possessions if you're um, taking those on every possession. You're not getting to the free throw line, certainly. Those are all things that hurt you down the stretch. And to me, if you're trying to stave off a comeback, and what was the biggest lead down the stretch? You got it to like 17, right?
Yeah, I
Something
think they
like
were up
So,
that.
like
Yeah.
17 with less than 3 remaining.
so every time you score, even 1 point during that stretch, makes it that much more difficult for the other team to come back. It's when you go on these long, long stretches without scoring anything that give you life there. So you're right, Nate. It's about the free throws and it's about who's shooting them to some degree. But you can even prevent getting to that point by just sprinkling in points here or there. And that's where, to me, I think the shot selection thing goes a little overboard. The analytics thing goes a little overboard because I think what you're trying to think in those situations is take clock off, take off the total amount of possessions that the other team has. That's why you're slowing things down. But then you limit your offense, then you limit your ability to put points up and put the game away. So to me, I've always felt like if you have a big lead down the stretch, you gotta just keep playing the same way. You gotta keep pushing the pace. You gotta. I mean, the Knicks to me are a pace team. When they're out on the break, when they're running, they're that team that can demoralize you. But you also got to get stops, and they didn't get many of those down the stretch either. This has been a
Absolutely.
suspect Knicks defensive team at times this year.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, the main reason why they've been a suspect team in the regular season is the lack of Mitchell Robinson.
Yep.
I don't think in these playoffs they've been a suspect defensive team at all, honestly.
Yep. They
Um,
were great against
to
Boston.
to your point about the pace of the game, I just made this point. I'm bringing it up again. I hate that I'm bringing it up again. Jalen Brunson is one of the most clutch players in the league. It's perfectly basketball logical to expect Jalen Brunson to be able to score when there's 8 seconds left on the shot clock and you burn those other 16 seconds. It just comes down to execution. Like, I really don't see an issue besides Jalen Brunson not taking the free throws. I really don't see an issue with the way that the Knicks played down the stretch at all. Um, they could have made better passes. They could have made sure that the person who should be taking the free throws was taking the free throws and they didn't do that. But besides that, like, I don't really like slowing the game down makes sense to me. That's how Jalen Brunson kind of thrives anyway. And that's really Jalen Brunson and get out the way moments. Like, that's the time that happens. So I don't really see an issue with that. I see your point about like playing the same way, but to kind of push back on that a little bit also. Throughout the game, they were kind of playing more like Indiana style. And like we saw from both teams in the fourth quarter, that style, you kind of run into a drought. The Pacers had a huge drought when Jalen Brunson went to the bench, and then the Knicks had a huge drought closing out the end of the fourth quarter. So I don't know. Like I think it's case by case basis about like if you should play the same or like if you should slow the game down. But I think typically I feel teams have more control over the game when they slow it down.
I mean, it's just hard to slow the game down though when, like you guys had mentioned, you guys they're turning over the ball as much as they can, and when it comes to the transition game, in the end, is up there with the best of them. Halliburton runs almost like a globetrotter type of offense. Um, so a lot of the times, you can only really play the game that's presented to you, and the Knicks just lost it. I mean, the only way you can really slow down the game is from jump, and it seemed like they had a pretty good chance of doing that last game, and then it fell apart.
I'm watching it back. I mean, when you get to and remember, we were trying to get the show going last night. So a couple minutes left. I'm like, all right, let's get on. We can just start talking. It's probably over. I'm watching 30 seconds left. It's still an 8-point game. Or yeah, an 8-point game at that point. Neesmith hits that 3. It's 5 at that point. But 30 seconds left. You have a chance. And they made that foul call on Siakam. It was a great challenge. Luckily, they had a challenge in that situation. They get the ball back. Neesmith makes another 3 at that point, which is just, I don't know how the threes keep going down. That's just part of it, is that they're trading 1 point for 3, then they're trading 2 points for 3. The Knicks did score a couple times late. Towns splits those free throws. You think that would be enough. Then they do the take foul, so it's down to 1, and then you miss another free throw. So you're right, Nate. It might have been the free throws above all else, because I
They
can't think of any other way
also
that
they
leading errors like
also
that.
never defended Nemhard or Neesmith, I should say. They never defended Neesmith
Nope.
when he was hot down the stretch. They never defended him, and
He
that
said
is
after the game, he said, I couldn't believe they weren't guarding me.
yeah. And like Charles said it in the post game, he said like after he hits 2, he's hot. Like you got to defend him, and they didn't do that either. So again, like credit to the Pacers, they did what they were supposed to do in that situation. They were successful in that situation. In a situation that few teams being put in that same situation have been able to be successful from. But at the same time, it all comes down to unforced errors and mistakes by the Knicks. And I don't think that I don't expect that to continue in the next few games.
We've had a Haliburton discussion for a lot this year. I wish Lindo was here, our friend Lindo, because he's not a Haliburton guy. I love him. He's probably one of my 5 favorite players. Nate, I don't think you've been the biggest Haliburton guy. Is your mind starting to change on him a little bit, given the comebacks he's led and a second straight East Finals now for that team?
I mean, they got to the East Finals last year because the Knicks were hurt. Let's be real. And then they got to this
but they were in
finals
position
also.
to take advantage of that.
But at the same, it's like they didn't even play anyone until the Knicks this year. They didn't play anyone healthy. With the Bucks, it's no Dame, no chance. Dame didn't play, and then with the Cavs, like everybody was hurt, and then they somehow assembled it back together at the end of the series. But there's no chemistry, there's no camaraderie with that team anymore because like you have like Mobley, and these are big pieces too. You have Mobley out, you have Darius Garland out. There was one more starter out if I'm not mistaken. Like I just they're in lucky situations and they make the most out of these lucky situations. That's how I feel about them right now.
Where are you at on Vasquez?
Uh, the results speak for themselves. 2 straight East Finals is really hard to deny him. I
And it's all
understand.
him. When he's
Yeah,
not
no,
in the game, they're screwed.
no, absolutely. I think he does have an underrated clutch gene. That's
I'll give Nemhard a little love
that's
too. I won't go that
that's
far, but
oh, absolutely. But I mean, again, he's just undeniable. He's an amazing player. He's a humble player, but I hate to say humble because he doesn't like to show off when he loses.
Is he
Um,
humble? I don't know if he's
I
humble.
I think given the circumstances he is. And
even with the
yeah,
choke,
even with the choke. I mean, when you play in New York City and you play in the bright lights of the Garden and
that
you
was
make those kinds of
perfect.
shots, oh,
It was
it was
perfect. I love
beautiful.
The
it.
the best part of that moment is when they cut to commercial and then they show Lloyd Pierce telling Tyrese Haliburton it's a 2, and all his teammates are like draped over him, and he's like, "It's a 2." Hilarious, hilarious
Yeah.
moment. That
He's
would
a
have
funny
been
guy too.
that would have been NBA meme Hall of Fame if they lost.
Oh, a
I
thousand percent.
I'd put him up there with my favorite guys to interview too across the league. I love that locker room. I love those guys, and he's great too as well for his media availabilities. So that's another reason I like him. But the theatrics Vasquez, and I don't know if that's humble or not, but it's fun.
Oh, it's definitely fun, and yeah, it's easy to discredit, the matchups that he had in the postseason, but I mean, any team would have those same circumstances. That's kind of what the postseason is. You play who's in front of you. You play the games that you play. You know, once it's 48, it's jump ball, and I mean, a lot of these games, it wasn't even as if they were leading them. A good amount of these were comebacks, and that takes a certain level of talent to do so.
Three comebacks under 1 minute that you would never imagine in the same postseason. One in every
It
series.
and mind you, before this Pacers run, I think the record was like what 1 in 400 and something, or maybe even zero.
Yeah, in that
That that
situation for the next game, yeah.
that has worth and value. So I'm
Whew.
definitely coming around to him. I'm not ready to say yet that he can lead a championship team. I think they're one or two pieces away.
Well,
Um, but to be one of
that's
the
what we're
best
about
young
to see.
stars is enough for me.
The other thing too, I mean, Siakam's been a real smart addition, Nate. That's like a good lesson that you can solidify your team with a guy who's a star but not superstar and still benefit from that. I thought that trade was really good for them. All they gave up was Bruce Brown and some picks too, so that worked out great. Turner keeping him around even as they rebuilt, smart move. They just got great players up and down that roster. The Neesmith thing, trading Brogdon for him and getting a player that they like back, buying low on a guy like that. Awesome move. And then you get to the Matherins and the way they've drafted and multiple guys, Nemhart, Haliburton, they drafted, of course, too. So they've drafted well, too, from the middle of the draft. And this is what I love
They
about more
traded
than
for
anything,
Haliburton.
Nate.
They traded
Oh,
Sabonis for
that's right.
Haliburton.
That's right. The Kings trade. That's right.
Back when that was
Smart
a
trade.
win-win deal still.
The Kings are gonna
Not
king, man.
anymore.
Not
Not
anymore.
anymore. I totally forgot about that too. That's
Well, that's because don't get me started. Y'all know why that's not a win-win deal.
man, the
I
Y'all
think it
know.
Kings.
was the deal. I think it was the moves that they made afterwards that kind of swayed it Indiana's way, but
Y'all
that's a
y'all
different
know.
conversation for a different
Yep.
episode.
I love the Fox
Y'all know.
Sabonis team, and I love Sabonis too. Be interesting to see what happens with him this summer. But great point, Nate. So that's just a shrewd trade. But to me, it speaks to a team. They developed a different kind of style. They don't shoot a ton of threes. They developed a different way to work from being bad, after the Oladipo days, where he went down, and then just working their way from being moderate to bad to good and now to great, just through small moves, small draft picks, from the middle of the first round, um, you know, smart trades, just all these different moves that don't require tanking. And I'm so anti-tanking. We talk about it all the time. I hate how all these teams go into these years without any intention of competing. But the Pacers have probably going back to the 90s, the Reggie Miller days, have tried in some way to compete pretty much every single year. And I love that. I think that being rewarded is a great thing. You might not be one of the best teams in your conference or in the league going into a year, but you catch some breaks, as you said, Nate. They haven't faced many healthy teams, and there's been some opportunities to win series that maybe they wouldn't have. But if you put yourself in position to get that luck, you're all of a sudden in the East Finals, and this year they might be
Mhm.
in the NBA Finals when no one would have predicted that going in.
Absolutely. Like I said, they've been able to make the best out of the situation that they've been put in, and they certainly deserve credit for that. But I just again, I just can't. It's more to me that the Knicks lost this game than the Indiana Pacers won, and that's despite the incredible performance we saw down the stretch from Neesmith and Tyrese Haliburton in overtime, and with that shot to get to overtime in the first place. But the thing that stands out to me the most from this game is just the errors in strategy and in execution from the Knicks.
Vasquez, we get the Thunder tonight. I want to get your thoughts quick because, we won't talk about it at length here, but you got this Final Four. It's the parity Final Four, four teams that, again, wouldn't have predicted to be here. Knicks, Pacers, Wolves even, who were almost a playing team at the start, at the end of the regular season. So is this door wide open for the Thunder to run through these Final Four teams here? That's how I'm feeling.
Oh, absolutely. 68 wins, record number of double-digit wins, the second highest net rating of all time. You know, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander for all the free throw, jokes and stuff like that. Just won his MVP. This is as good of a chance as they have. I was definitely concerned in the Denver series, and a lot of that just has to do with Jokic, and considering the shots that Aaron Gordon made early on. I think they're good. I think this would definitely go 6 to 7 games just off of the strength of Edwards. Um, but yeah, I feel pretty confident. You know, I believe after we had won Game 7, I think that was the first day that I was like, oh wow, Oklahoma might actually win this title for the first time since 2016. I still stand on that. Most deep
Are
team in
you
the
there, Nate?
league, second youngest team of all time. Fantastic.
Am I there for Oklahoma City to win?
Mm-hmm.
It will be a massive disappointment. It will be a failure if they don't win. They're the deepest team. They're the best team, and they're the deepest team.
Yeah, and it's experience, it's coaching that's lost them a couple games here or there. I felt like the Celtics had a chance against them because of the experience advantage they had, the shooting advantage. They had a couple key advantages in that matchup. I just don't see any of the teams left having a real significant advantage that they can utilize against Oklahoma City unless the Thunder just choke or don't play to their ability, which is still possible here. But I think game one against Minnesota said a lot about the level that they can get to when they need to. Denver was probably the toughest team left for the Thunder to take down, and they almost screwed it up. They almost botched that series. They got a little injury luck themselves with Gordon and him not being Gordon by the seventh game. So
It was
you
even
always
without
say, all
injury.
right,
Two
yep,
max contracts didn't show up in Game 7.
yep. So you always say what could have been for Denver if they end up winning that series, but Thunder back on track. And I felt like for a while this is their year. All the things Vasquez said there about the stats and the wins and the productivity and a tough conference that they put up during the season. So when we get to the finish line, I think we'll all be saying, man, it was the Thunder. It was always the Thunder. But Pacers would intrigue me a little bit. That would be an interesting contrast in styles. But that's it for us here on Bobby Manning and Friends, the first edition of our relaunch here. Thanks to Nate Spurlin, who we'll see about getting you in the title, Nate. Check out his work over at Old Milk, including the Cat podcast, which I always enjoy. Anthony Vasquez here. Shout out to him, big Thunder fan. Maybe getting to live out his championship dreams this
Oh,
spring. So
absolutely. We
we'll talk
deserve
to you
this after
guys.
2012.
We'll talk to you guys next week, and we'll have one more interview coming to you this weekend before we wrap up our week here over at Bobby Manning and Friends. So subscribe, CLNS Media, Celtics All Access, and we'll talk to you soon.